Do you have a suggestion for a Rockstar Impact Podcast guest? Go to impactpodcast.com and just click Be a Guest to recommend someone today. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Closed Loop Partners. Closed Loop Partners is a leading circular economy investor in the United States with an extensive network of Fortune 500 corporate investors, family offices, institutional investors, industry experts, and impact partners. Closed Loop's platform spans the arc of capital from venture capital to private equity, bridging gaps and fostering synergies to scale the circular economy. To find Closed Loop Partners, please go to www.closedlooppartners.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. I'm John Shigarian. I'm so excited to have with us today Will Mansfield. He's the head of customer success for the U.S. and Europe for LexisNexis. Welcome, Will, to the Impact Podcast.
Thanks, John. Thank you very much for welcoming me. Really appreciate it being here and talking with you.
Oh, well, thanks. And I'm sitting here in Fresno, California in the USA, and you are in Germany today.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not originally from Germany, but it's a wonderful place to be. So happy to be here.
Speaking of where, being originally from, where did you grow up and how did you get on this wonderful journey, an important journey with LexisNexis?
Yeah, so I'm originally from the UK. I grew up around Oxford and spent a lot of time in that part of the UK, but moved over to Germany about 8-9 years ago. Me and my wife, we wanted to move. We wanted to move into Europe. And Germany seemed a fantastic place to move to, and I've been very, very happy here.
That's wonderful. So, that's an interesting title you have, Head of Customer Success. We've had over 2,000 guests on this show in 16 years, never had the Head of Customer Success. What does that mean at the iconic and great brand that you represent, LexisNexis?
Yeah, so customer success, I would say, it's becoming more common a function, particularly in online service providers. So, that you think of, media streaming services or such like, but even, us making sure our customers are successful and happy and using the product in a way that leads to their success, leads to us having better brand recognition, us having, customers who say to their colleagues or their friends, this is a good company and they want to buy our services. So we are successful as a business when we make our customers successful. And that's what I and team do. I mean, we came out of a consulting background. So I think our customer success motion is even more than a lot of other organizations that provide some kind of customer success organization. I mean, we really want to understand what are the challenges our customers face and actively suggest solutions that they can achieve within the products that they subscribe to solve them, right? So they don't have to learn everything about what we do. We learn about them and then actively suggest solutions for them.
Will, I come from a family of lawyers. Both my children are lawyers. My brother's a lawyer. Talk a little bit about, is LexisNexis specifically for the legal profession, or is it much wider than that?
Yeah. So, I mean, when people say LexisNexis, they mostly think LexisNexis legal and professional, that company that, maybe sold in the past big volumes of books and today sells and provides solutions in the legal space. I mean, LexisNexis IP, intellectual property, where I work, we do similar, but we do so for intellectual property. And we are part of a larger organization, RELX, that also includes Elsevier, which is the publisher of scientific literature, which is how most people interact with them. But they also do similar things to what we do with intellectual property on scientific literature as well. So we have some interesting collaborations with them also.
Talk a little bit about LexisNexis, then your division, the intellectual property solutions, and the trend of sustainability. I understand that sustainability is a big deal at intellectual property solutions at LexisNexis. Explain how, what is, with no pun intended, what's the nexus or the connection between sustainability and LexisNexis intellectual property, IP?
Yeah, so patents, which is what we cover, they are the primary kind of intellectual property that we look at. Patents are a really unique window into what a company is really doing. So instead of looking at, say, marketing material or investor communication or product data sheets or such, all of those are some kind of bias, right? There's some kind of marketing to some group of people. Patents, they have to be truthful. They have to be, written in a way that is understandable, that describes the technology that they are covering, and they are examined by the patent office. So they, reject unnecessary language. They check the validity of the statements within there. They only grant them if they are achievable, right? You can't patent a perpetual motion machine, for example. So they are a really unique window, like I say, that we can tell what an organization is doing without the bias, without the greenwashing that people would say in the sustainability space. And so that's why they map really well with looking at sustainability, right? So we can look at all companies that exist and see where they are really investing. Where's the dollars going, right, in their R&D spending? And the patents are a product of that innovation, a product of that R&D that we can use to look into their practices, look into what they're doing, look into where they're putting their efforts.
So there's something to, the two words that come to mind are trust and truth. So there's a truth to the patents that is logical, holds value. So you're also, it's a great way of measuring the assets of an organization, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, the majority of assets that organizations hold today are intangible ones, things that aren't physical assets, aren't stock or factories or vehicles. They are knowledge or software designs or patents. Patents play a huge role in that. The ability for a company to have an invention and to have sole ability to leverage that invention is a huge asset that allows them to operate their business that many organizations couldn't do without having that, or would not be anywhere near as successful without having that. So they are cornerstones to the products and business practices in a lot of industries.
That's interesting. And for our listeners and viewers who just joined us, we've got Will Mansfield with us today. He's the head of customer success for the US and Europe for LexisNexis Intellectual Property Solutions. To find Will and his colleagues, you can go to LexisNexisIP.com. Talk a little bit about, sustainability, because I've been doing sustainability and because we own a big recycling company for 21 years or so. Sustainability could be read very widely or narrowly now. Will, when you're looking at sustainability and how to benchmark it, you have these new alphabet soup of terminologies. You have ESG, of course. You have circular economy, linear to circular economy. You have planet positivity. You also have all sorts of new regulations coming out of the United States with the SEC, and of course, Europe already published theirs. And then you have the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Talk a little bit about where you fall in here and how you use sustainability narrowly or widely to help benchmark what sustainability means at LexisNexis.
Yeah, so I mean, that problem that you point to, of all of these different methods, is how we started looking at this. We started looking to support investors to be able to create groups of stocks of sustainable organizations, sustainable companies. And the problem they had is to say which companies, which organizations are sustainable, because there was not some objective, clear definition that they could use in order to do so. And that's where we stepped in. Patents could provide us a way of saying, what these companies are really doing, but we still needed a framework in order to say whether such a patent was sustainable or covering a sustainable innovation or not. And most sustainability, metrics or reports, they are the output of some or few expert analysis or opinions or such. And there's some amount of truth to all of those, but sustainability is a really complicated topic. Right? It changes with time, it changes with scale. And if we look at electric cars, that's generally seen as a sustainable option. But where are you getting the raw materials for that from? That can become very questionable very quickly. And if suddenly tomorrow we said everyone needs an electric car, how we would need to attain those raw materials would become extremely questionable, right? And probably then not be sustainable anymore. So it changes with scale, it changes with time, it changes with practices, with the level of development within particular industries. And so it needs a huge effort to keep track of that, to make sure you're getting input from all of the parties, all of the opinions, all of the analysis, in order to assess what should be counted and what should not be. And the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is the current iteration of 50 years worth of work on their side on sustainability frameworks. It's the current iteration of those decades of work. And it includes input from all of the countries and regions, from governmental and non-governmental entities, from corporates that are contributing it as well. It's a massive input that they've taken and then turn that into the goals and the overall framework. And it's extremely detailed. The goals at the highest level are fairly straightforward to grasp, but beneath this, there are detailed targets on exactly what the UN wants to achieve. They've got extremely detailed metrics and methods for capturing data on each of those targets and assessing, are they met or not? And they have a whole host of policy guidance and supporting documents that countries or companies can use in order to work towards certain goals. And so it is extremely detailed and extremely well aligned across many different actors. And so that gave us this extremely strong framework to map the patterns to. I mean, LexisNexis, we are not an authority in sustainability. We're an authority on patents. That's the thing we know. And so the UN SDGs, that allows us to map over to something that is very solid, very well constructed. And then we can add value where we are experts.
So let's run our audience through what would be an example of how a company engages with LexisNexis. I'm the CEO of a biosciences company in Silicon Valley, and I have all these genius creative and engineering people around me, and we're creating some of the next generation of medical devices that are going to really make a great impact on this planet with our future patients. So I have 8 patents that we filed over the last 6 years. Do I then engage with LexisNexis IP to understand where I am in my journey with regards to the true up and the true value of these assets to the future viability of our company before we go public and before we become a much bigger entity?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly something organizations have done with us, right? So a company that is, in that example, looking for investment or looking to go public and needs to speak about what assets they have and how they are valued and what are they compared to others as well, maybe. So we can say what the value of the technologies underlying those patents are. So we have methods for doing so. We can do things like we're talking about sustainability and say, do they map to the Sustainable Development Goals? And we can say, what are the peers doing? How does this company compare to the others that are out there? Are they more or less innovative? What is the trajectory that they are on? Who might be competitors in that space? And we do that for those kind of smaller sized entities in terms of patents, at least. But we also support medium-sized entities, very large entities that have tens or hundreds of thousands of patents even. We also support governmental organizations as well. We work with the European Commission, who use the products as well to assess if mergers or acquisitions should be allowed to go through. Will they have too much of an impact on the innovation landscape and cause some kind of monopoly, for example? Yeah.
So you're an advisor to both organizations, public and private, and also to government entities and other governing bodies on the viability and of third-party organizations.
Yeah, I mean, that is the window that patents allow us to look through, right? They give us that, ability to understand, really what people are doing, maybe what they don't want us to know that they are doing, right? Or, truly value them in a more objective way.
So let's go back to, I want to go talk first about people, and then I want to talk about technology. On the people side, are all of your employees patent lawyers or patent experts, so to speak, before we talk about the great technology that you have that differentiates you from your competition?
No, not all of our employees are patent attorneys or similar. I mean, myself, I'm an economist and training as a business analyst.
Okay.
Right. I look at businesses and understand what they're doing and their trends and how to forecast that going forward. I mean, before working at LexisNexis IP, I worked at a company called Hanwha Q-Cells. It's one of the major manufacturers of solar modules and cells. Okay. And there did R&D strategy. What's late stage in our R&D pipeline? What are our competitors bringing out? What can we bring to market to maintain our competitive position and our premium price point?
Sure.
And we looked at patents, but our patent function there was a very traditional function, which just went through the legal process and didn't step beyond that, basically.
Understood.
And only joining LexisNexis IP, then I saw what is really possible and how that information could have contributed to what I was doing. And that's what we want to enable people to do, right? We want to enable the law professionals to have better insights, to provide improved guidance to their clients. And we want to empower corporates to be able to use this information to make good strategic decisions about their business.
So how does so now we're off the people side of it. Talk about your technology and database that allows your clients to have the best and truest information on other people's IP and patents and their own IP and patents as well.
Yeah, so in principle, all patent data is public and available, and that's true. You can go to the US Patent Office or the UK or German Patent Office website and look up any patent that you like. I mean, patents fundamentally are a deal with society, right? I disclose my invention, right, and you give me exclusivity. of it, right? So I contribute to the knowledge of society
Sort of a
with my invention.
social legal contract between both parties.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah, so that information exists, but in order to then say, broad picture, what is an organization doing or what is a technology doing, we need to aggregate that data from all of the regional patent offices, and we need to process that into something that's consistent and usable. So companies will file for patents in their subsidiaries' names. Some companies will actively try and hide the ownership of their patents so that people aren't aware of who owns them, and then they can, use them to litigate or similar, right? And so we need to cut through all of that information to really say who owns what technologies these are in, are they active or not? Patents have a lifetime, they have fees that need to be paid. So, they need to be maintained over a period of time, and maybe they are or are not active. And that can tell us about how strong a company's portfolio is, which technologies they are choosing to develop in, which technologies they are choosing to maintain their holdings in, even what regions around the world they're active in, right? We can look at where the inventors are based or where these companies are choosing to file or protect their patents, which are normally the markets where they have factories or key consumers in those markets. So aggregating that information from all of those places and making it readily available for people to analyze, that's what we do, basically. And me and my team, we help people understand that data, because even patent professionals, someone who has spent their whole life working in IP in the US may have no idea how the Japanese system works or the European system works, right? I mean, why would you? I'm sure that person knows way more about the US system than me, but I can help them understand what the global picture looks like and how that works.
Will I be amiss in my questioning if I didn't ask you about the trend and the use of AI? Is AI used by LexisNexis IP to do some of this work, to parse and aggregate and further parse and communicate this information that your clients need and want?
Yeah, so a lot of our traditional solutions don't use any kind of AI. So the kind of ownership, correction and maintenance that I've mentioned, we have a team of people who really look at that.
Understood.
The sustainable development goals that we do, they are people who have crafted ways of looking for those patents. However, we do really see the value in bringing AI in and helping that allow our customers to make the most out of the tools. So we have an acquisition that we made called Cypher that's currently being integrated into our main product patent site, to allow people to take some examples of patents and say, I want to look at this technology and give some examples. So that can be a few patents or a few words or a paragraph. And then the system comes back with examples and says, is this right or is this right? And you tell it, and then it crafts a search for you. And whilst people feel uncomfortable sometimes with giving up too much control to the machine, I think it's a necessity that we understand how to leverage that and use it to be more productive. Because even in our experience with what we're implementing now, the machine can almost always detect patterns that we can't detect, right? Some random combination of words that to us doesn't mean anything, but to the machine, it can find those patterns and isolate groups that we wouldn't be able to otherwise. So it is really, really important, but I think it's using it in the right way. We want to, enable people with it, And there are cases where we still need real people to look at things, like in the case of our ownership harmonization. The team there is critical to making sure that is correct, and they really understand why something is the way it is.
Will, about how many years ago did you join LexisNexis?
I joined LexisNexis about 6 years ago now. Yeah.
Okay, so talk about the growth. Is this an industry that's a growth industry? Because even, we don't get to hear about it. It's in the media a lot, and I've never crossed paths with this kind of service or industry. Talk a little bit about how the industry's grown, and
Sure.
how it's grown at LexisNexis since you've been there.
So, patents themselves are experiencing massive growth. Up until recently, the Chinese government gave subsidies, tax breaks and such to patenters in China, which massively increased the number of filings there multiple times over. But even without such subsidies in other countries, it's still very, very active. So there are a huge number of patents, and it's constantly increasing as well. So from that perspective, there is really a challenge of understanding which are relevant, which are valuable, right? And most patents don't provide a meaningful return to their owners. The estimate is about 20% do and 80% do not. So to understand which that 20% is really challenging, and becomes ever more challenging as that grows. But as patents become more leveraged by more organizations, it also widens our scope of what we can see and who we can learn about. And that's where, tools like, what I've been talking about mostly, Patent Site, allow companies, and not just patent professionals, but, organizations or people like I was in some kind of business or organizational strategy, to understand, what the world is doing, what our competitors are doing, even who our competitors are in some cases, particularly in, say, emerging industries. If you think about, we talked about, electric cars or, say, autonomous driving or such, there's so many players entering these markets from technology or other directions that even knowing who your competitors are can be a challenge these days. And it's something that we can cut through with patents as well.
That's so interesting. I know you cover, Will, US and Europe, but you have an Asian division. Does China and their methodologies, and I'm not here to advocate that they're bad or good methodologies, but given where China is on patent issues, does that make part of what you do more difficult when people are trying to prove, or when you have a customer that needs to prove or disprove the value of a patent that's in China?
Yeah, this is a real challenge. If you're only, if you have a competitor, or if you have a technology that, you want to leverage there, or is being also developed in China, trying to cut through that number of patents that are there is really challenging. You need a method to say which are really relevant, which are really valuable. And we obviously do provide solutions to do so, right? We have metrics and methods for doing exactly that. But you need something in order to cut through, because otherwise it is just impossible. And it has created a lot of noise, but it has created a lot of innovation in China as well. We have a report and an analysis that was in a World Trade Organization publication, which looked at the development of global innovation and the interconnectedness between countries. And one of the outcomes of that was seeing that as China has developed, they've become less and less reliant on other countries' innovations, citing them less, and more citing their own and developing their own technology built on their own technology. So really setting a path forward for them. And again, something that we can see through the citations in the patent data.
Will, you're obviously relatively a young man, still have a huge career in front of you. And as you said, patents are booming. This is a boom time for patents. What's next for LexisNexis Intellectual Property Solutions Division? What initiatives or projects that you're allowed to talk about get you excited and get you out of bed in the morning?
I mean, like I mentioned at the very beginning, right? We are part of RELX, and that also includes Elsevier. And so something that is on our kind of long-term roadmap is bringing together the scientific literature data and the patent data. I think these two sources of information really give a much more complete view of all of the technology innovation and development that is happening in the world, not just through patents that are maybe commercialized, but also research that's happening before it comes to the filing of a patent or before it comes to commercialization. And I think bringing those kind of worlds together will allow us to see things that we cannot do today. Development trends and who's working on early stage innovation will allow us to measure organizations and research bodies much more accurately. And I think I'm very confident that RELX is one of the few organizations that can really meaningfully do that, right? Not a lot of organizations have access to that scope of information that they could bring together. And certainly that long-term outlook is what makes me excited to work for this organization.
That information that you believe and hope will merge in the database search with your patent information, that information though is going to be, how do you both verify but also make sure the efficacy is of the degree that you want it to be? Is it only science-based information, or is it anecdotal-based information that's well documented by the right kind of people? What are the data points you look for on that kind of merger of the patent data with that other data that exists out there that will make it an even more powerful search and IP tool than you already have today?
Yeah, I mean, for IP, like I mentioned, this does get examined by the patent offices, and so we have a method of validation already. Elsevier and others in their tools, they then choose, say, journals that are more well regarded.
Understood.
Right, but there needs to be a method on their side for saying this is the gold standard information, rather than the way that we do, which is relying on the patent offices and the examiners who are expert in their field. Right. Yeah.
So they'll create a benchmark for each of the different industries that they're pulling the information from that will then be footnoted as the highest standard, et cetera, when the information's merged and then delivered to your client base.
Something like this.
Something like this. Got it. Well, I'm a layman. Come on, you're an economist. I'm trying to simplify this stuff, Will. Come on. I'm just a business guy. That's wonderful, though. This is such an important tool and role, and really fascinating, because I've never even heard about this unbelievably great service. And I really appreciate you taking the time today to explain the importance of patents, the importance of the information that you are able to deliver to your companies, and the importance into the sustainability, to benchmark the sustainability of your clients or your clients' competition by using this information. Just absolutely fascinating. Just fascinating stuff. And thank you, Will, for making a fairly complicated subject understandable to folks like me and our audience members. And for our listeners and viewers who want to find Will Mansfield and his colleagues at LexisNexis in the Intellectual Property Solutions Division, please go to www.lexisnexisip.com. Will Mansfield, I just want to say thanks for your time today. Thank you and LexisNexis for making the world a better, a more interesting place. And we hope to have you back one day on the Impact Podcast.
Cheers, John.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent, for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com.